Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of In the Chute. This is where Kaylin tries to give me some subject matter that maybe stumps me and maybe not. But how would he know if I just pull stuff out of my hat? What do you got, Kaylin?
So, as I've said before in other episodes, I try to provide things that dad will be knowledgeable on. Occasionally, I stump him, but it's not very often. In this particular case, we have had people ask us, and we have discussed very, very small amounts, increments at a time about sponsorship. Dad has done a lot of training throughout the United States. He sold videos throughout the world, fortunately, both on horse training and around corral and putting a horse into either a trailer or taking them into the backcountry. So there's a lot of educational stuff that dad has shared before we ever got into YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. But people have always asked, why don't you do sponsorship things? And there's been a couple of times where I remember us going to the Northern Invitational Livestock Exposition in Billings, Montana, typically in the fall time. And this was when I was younger. And we would go there. We would kind of show ourselves off in a booth, and then we would watch a horse trainer train a colt, a green colt, in 3 days and be able to sell it. And that was kind of the pitch. That guy was also sponsored, and I think dad approached him one time and asked him some questions about sponsoring. And so I'm gonna use kind of that whole background there. Why is it that you, as a guy that sold videos around the world, done trainings and sold horses all over the United States, why is it that you are not sponsored, but you've been doing horse training for decades? Why is it that's the case?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. Northern International Livestock Exposition, the Niles show in Billings, has been going for a long, long time. And you're right, we've had set up a booth as a vendor there for our training, clinics, horses, you name it. And you're right, we've actually done some small clinics for them in years past, but there's been a couple of very well-known clinicians that I've talked to that are sponsored up the wazoo, and was looking at heading that direction early on, and talk to them, just ask them that question. They all, they think you're going to have some question about, hey, what do I do with my horse? But mine was a
Well,
little
and
different.
I should ask too, real before you even get into that, why is it that you look into sponsorship? What's the
Well,
benefit of that?
the benefit of that is you're working more, you're on like a circuit where you're hitting it hard and you're traveling a lot, but you're making some steady income by teaching clinics that a corporation or a group of corporations, a consortium, are setting up for you. And you may have an exclusive with somebody. It could be somebody like Purina Feeds, Featherlight Trailers, Wall Clippers. I mean, you see them all. uh, Lots of whatever wares that a corporation has to sell. It's how they get the word out. What you really are is a working advertisement for them.
Right.
And the questions I asked was simply, if you had to do this again, would you do sponsorships or take the sponsorships in order to, you know, share your knowledge? And the look of shock I got was kind of funny. And then, I would get a kind of, you could tell it was a thoughtful, kind of a looking back, would I do this again? And the best answer I got was, it depends on what you want.
Mm.
And he said, I've been able to make a good living. One of them said that, doing this, and he'd been doing it for a long, long time. And he said, here's the problem with it. You can't always say what you want to say, because your primary job is to sell their wares, wear their clothing, their logo, be an ambassador for them. So you can't always do and say the things you want to. They're interested in you pushing their product. So there's kind of a catch-22. He said, it's, you're on a schedule. You can't say no. You
Yeah.
need to be somewhere. You got to be somewhere, and everything else comes secondarily. And that's true in most businesses and most jobs. But with that, you're tied in, because you're on a tour, or call it a tour. So um, the very fact that I didn't want somebody telling me what I could and couldn't teach, and how I could and couldn't teach, because I try to be good with people. I want to be treated, or I want to treat people, or want them to feel like they're treated like I would want to be treated. So, I'm not disparaging to people. I'm not nasty to them. I'm truly trying to help them. You got to be honest with some people though, too. I mean, you say, hey, this is what you're doing. You may not be doing this on purpose, but there's a way to do that. And I've seen some people they're not kind. They're jackasses, to be short.
Especially when they're getting paid by the person you're trying to help.
Yes, and it's like, so I really thought that over. Um, I mean, it was a process to work through, and I thought, you know what, my integrity is worth more than chasing a dollar, and that
Yeah.
was it. So I said, okay, I'm not pursuing it. I'm not, gonna go that route. People that want to see you will see you. People that will find you. Word of mouth is better anyway. And frankly, some of the stuff we've gotten back has been very, very positive. There are people they're kind of like groupies in a way. I mean, they are hooked on getting better with their animal, meaning their horse. And so they will chase every trainer, clinician, go to different ones, and they'll settle in on somebody they want. And some of them even will put, you know, some clinician's brand, have a saddle made and put their brand on it. In one case that happened, and after I went to that clinic, taught that clinic, and that person asked the saddle maker there if they could remove that brand off of there. It made such an impact because of the differences in how we related to people, which is a huge compliment. But it's like, oh, well, I'd never put somebody else's brand on my
Yeah.
saddle anyway to begin with. So, and working with some other clinicians during that clinic, was a huge, uh, a huge win, I thought, for what our overall goal is, and that's to teach people and have them come away with some skills that they can apply for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thing too that to kind of take away from this for anybody that's viewing and maybe finding you for the first time would be um the monetary gain out of it, of having a good living and get to do exactly what you want to do every single day would be awesome. But the downside, and this is the more integrity and character part that I think we've tried to do a lot of is, if you're pushing a certain product and suddenly you find, oh, there's a better one that's just come out, there's maybe new technology that's reformed, or they found a new mineral that maybe they can put different vitamins in and it's a little bit better for my animal, and suddenly you can't say anything about that, but that's better for your animal. That's where it comes in. You're like, man, I don't believe in this anymore. And then, or now in these days too, the other thing is you could say something slightly political or be taken as that impact or that effect, and they'll that impact on you is that they would potentially fire you and be like, hey, we're revoking all sponsorship, all monetary gains because you said something that doesn't align with the values of our company.
Well, I think it's not only that. I mean, you may say something, uh, talk about the differences in balancing on a horse between men and
Yeah.
women. And that is a huge thing. And I give an in-depth demonstration of that. Well, if you say that, all of a sudden you are either a misogynist or something. And yeah, so the truth and demonstrated truth isn't necessarily what companies want to hear.
Right.
They want to hear the cash register ching. And if they'll cancel you or fire you, or they may move in a direction that you don't align with as well. They may do something, they may change something in their program, and now you're contractually obligated to stick with them that you don't believe
Mm.
in. That's their right as a business, and okay. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to that can be part of what you shouldn't do, part of what you can't do, and part of what they won't want you to do. So I like having our own integrity and not being dependent on someone else's integrity, because that sometimes can be a disaster. I think we've
Well,
maybe have talked about a little bit about that before. It's
yeah.
always better to make your own decisions and stand on those.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes with the whole philosophy of our financial situation too. We've been losing money the last few years, especially in the cattle market. But as you pointed out multiple times, we're currently beholden to nobody other than ourselves
Right.
because we don't owe any money to the bank, which is a very fortunate circumstance. Which that's forcing a lot of farmers and ranchers today in 2020s, early 2020s to fold because they don't have the money to do that. So yeah, no, that's absolutely right on.
Yeah. Same thing. So there you have it.
That's why brand is not sponsored. So with that, we'll put that conversation out to pasture.